Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking to an amazing woman named Sequoia Craig. Sequoia is here today to talk about rebuilding trust, overcoming anger, and emotional sobriety. Sequoia is 23, owns her own company in the marketing and advertising arena, and has been working hard to heal from her past traumas. She is here to shed some light on therapy, importance of personal growth, and chasing your dreams. Welcome, lady.
Hi, thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing well. It's quite the introduction.
Yes, that's what we do here. Are you 23?
I am 23.
Very cool. When I was writing that, I was like, I hope she hasn't had a birthday in the last 3 weeks.
No. I'm an Aries, so I'm a ways away.
Very cool. Do you follow that? Do you follow the zodiac signs?
I've started to get into it a little bit.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What
it always it always was a little iffy for me. Like growing up, all my friends were really into it, but I never aligned with it. And then one of my friends did my chart for me and took me through the whole thing. And I learned that there's so much more to it than just, the 12 zodiacs and the day you were born, and kind of started to explore it a little bit. And it was like, wow, this is kind of interesting.
No kidding.
Yeah.
My son's father's dad is into a lot of that, or at least he was. I don't know if he still is, but yeah, like the sun and the moon and the stars and all of the things, the rising of the tide and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely interesting conversations in the past regarding that. So that's cool. I always I know my sign, but I don't know the people around me. I always kind of secretly low key I'm jealous of people that just know, you tell them your birthday and they're just like, oh, you're a blah, blah, blah. It's always kind of like, I should learn that just so I know it. So that's cool.
Yeah. What's your sign?
Leo.
Okay. See, I don't know enough to. That's great.
The only reason I am attracted to it is because of my hair. I have such big curly hair, and Leo is the lion. So I just aesthetically and ego, I guess, I enjoy saying it just because it matches my physical so much. But I don't know. I don't know much about it other than that.
Well, Aries is fiery, and I'm pretty fiery. So.
Very nice. What's your partner?
I think he's a Sagittarius. I'm not sure. You can tell I'm super into this, right?
Wait, isn't Sagittarius? Isn't that also a pretty strong sign?
That's what I understand. I haven't done a lot of research into it because he's something weird where his he doesn't show up as I don't remember. Anyway, we're on a tangent, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, definitely interesting. 100%. And I think that there is some truths to everything when you really kind of dig in. But listen, you are here to talk about some awesome things that I'm actually really excited to talk about because your story aligns tad bit with my story. So I always am kind of attracted to the females that I have on here that have similar thought process and storylines that I do, just because it kind of gives me, it's a very inspirational for me to rehear and then see how other people are overcoming and adapting in their life. So I would love it if you could, kind of dive in, your childhood, some of your early struggles, some of your early challenges that you kind of dealt with as a young person. Can you kind of do some storytelling for us?
Yeah. So my family tree is very complicated, so I'll do the best to tell the stories without drawing a picture, but I will share that every time I'd start with a new therapist, I'd always say, all right, here's my paper and pen, here's the family tree, here you go, this is what you need to know, because it was just too much for them to keep in their heads. I did the same with my partner too. So I have divorced parents, and I'm the only child from each of them. My mom has 4 other kids, and then I have 2 step siblings on my dad's side. So I'm one of 7, but I'm the only one from both my parents. So I was always alone in the experiences that I was going through because I didn't have a sibling who was going through things with me. And on my dad's side, my step siblings were way older and they weren't in the house. And on my mom's side was where all of the majority of the conflict was, and I was the oldest. So I didn't have anyone to turn to and ask for support really, because I was alone and I was the oldest. So, and I also was put in a position of being another parent. My mom is a narcissist. She has undiagnosed borderline personality disorder, and she has a white savior complex as well. So she decided that she was going to go save some children, and she adopted 3 kids. And I love my siblings to death, but it's important to also understand the history of that decision, what went into adopting children, and then here are these children that she didn't really know what to do with. And so I became the second or third parent, depending on the relationship she was in at the time.
Wow.
And ultimately, I moved out of her house when I was 17 and moved in with my dad, and I stopped talking to her for about 3 months, I think. And that was the period of me reclaiming my power. She was super manipulative, and any power that she could hold on to was used to control. And so when I moved out and I didn't talk to her, her initial reaction was, I'm going to make your life a living hell. You have no idea what you've done. You're going to regret this. And then after the dust settled and she realized that she wasn't getting anywhere because she didn't have anything to hold over my head, then she started to be a little bit nicer. And I've gone through periods of not talking with her. Right now, I'm not talking with her. But it's hard to navigate that because I do feel this pressure of I feel this pressure of people want to see this overcoming this beautiful mother-daughter relationship. And when my mom comes to me and says, I want to work on our relationship, and I say, I'm not there right now, then it feels almost like I'm the one sabotaging the relationship, and she's coming to it in this holistic mindset. And so when I'm not meeting her there, then I take on this guilt. So that's one of the things that I've been working on lately is I don't have to constantly want to grow that relationship just because I should. And the shoulds of what healthy looks like are really complicated. And when you start to add those into the mix, it gets unhealthy very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess going back to the early years, a lot of time spent confused, and I'm really grateful that my dad and my stepmom played the role that they did. My dad handed me a book that said adult children of borderline personality disorder and walked away. And he was like, he said, I think you should read this. And that was it. And he didn't like go into it at all, but I started reading it. And I remember like on the second page, there was a checklist. And I was like, wow, this is every single thing is my mother. Like she was so textbook. And so that was a huge clicking moment for me of this is not my fault. Wow. This is her. And this doesn't have to do with me. And it was super validating.
How old were you?
15, 14.
Wow. Yeah. That's great that he was able to give you clarity so young.
Yeah. So my dad and stepmom are both therapists too, which brings in a whole other layer of complexity to it. But yeah, so they were able to really provide me with the tools that I needed to be able to see what was really going on. And because for so long, I took it all personally. I thought it was my fault. I thought I was doing something wrong. Being around her was walking on eggshells, and it was my fault.
100%. 100%. Can you give some, like, do you have that, not necessarily that you have the checklist with you, but do you have like in your mind, like kind of the top, like a couple? Just for like the people listening, so they
the biggest thing is walking on eggshells. That was like the biggest one for me. It was, the name of the book was, I think it was just Adult Children of Borderline Personality Disorder. So long ago, but yeah, so walking on eggshells, mood swings, it's really commonly misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. Because they're very similar, but borderline tends to have a little bit more manipulation in it. Okay. But yeah, the walking on eggshells is the biggest one.
Got it.
Because I never knew what she was gonna do. I never knew how she was gonna react to things. And so like now I find myself taking, this is something that just came up in one of my coaching sessions, like I'm taking responsibility for things that are not my fault at all. Like instances with clients where something goes wrong, or there's like not even anything that goes wrong, but I take responsibility for it and beat myself up over it, because that's how I kept myself safe, was by taking responsibility and taking in as much of the space as I could so that there was no room for me to get in trouble.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have a story? Do you have like a specific highlighted story that kind of like encompasses what your relationship was like?
Yeah, so I have a lot. So one of the ones that is just so crazy, it's so crazy that it happened, but I was trying to do my homework. I think I was in middle school. I mean, I was young, and my mom asked me to go get a dustpan from the garage, and I couldn't find the dustpan. So she grounded me, and I still had to do my homework on the computer, but because I was grounded, I wasn't allowed to use the computer. So she drove me to my grandparents' house so I could use their computer to do my homework, because I was grounded for not being able to find the dustpan. And it wasn't just like, you're grounded. It was always accompanied by, you're a horrible person, screaming, yelling like this. It's not about just the dustpan. It's about who you are as an individual.
Wow. Yeah. 100%. Unfortunate. As far as, you growing up, I love that your dad was able to like key you in on that at such a young age. Like how grateful you must feel. Like imagine, holy crap. So that's awesome. But as far as, growing up and, like you're saying now, as far as, some of the things that you're still dealing with, what are some of the challenges that you've kind of had to deal with throughout your life growing up, that's kind of kept you from living your authentic life?
The biggest one that comes to mind is anger.
Wow. Okay.
I've spent so much time angry, and I still have a lot of anger. My partner often tells me how much better it's gotten. Like when we first started dating 4 years ago, I was just so angry. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's still there. Like I do have some residual anger, but I do feel much more relaxed. Like small things don't set me off as much. I was just so angry at the world and so angry at her for creating this environment and putting so much responsibility on me and putting so much like taking away my power. I mean, there was no autonomy either. I mean, I didn't understand self-care until I went to college, and I was like, what is this? What are you talking about? So like the idea that anything that wasn't completely selfless, wait, let me make sure I'm saying this right. Anything that's not completely selfless is selfish was something that was like routinely beat into my head. Like if you're doing something that's even remotely about yourself, you are being selfish.
Wow. Yes. Wait, say that again for the people in the back.
Okay, so if you are doing something even remotely about yourself, or for yourself, then it's selfish. And this idea that if
Yes.
it's not 100% selfless, it's selfish. If you're not giving up
Absolutely.
for someone else every minute of your being and every ounce of your energy, then you're being selfish.
Absolutely. What a great freaking way to phrase that. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. As far as your younger siblings, how much younger are they than you?
So there's four. One is 19, 18, 15, and 14.
And then since you guys kind of all grew up I know that you were in and out, but do you have any sort of relationship with them that's bonded on the trauma of your mom?
A little bit. My two younger siblings are still kind of in it. They still live with her and go back and forth between their dad and her. They're now split up, but they, when I see them, so they live in Arizona, I'm in California. When I see them, it feels really good to be able to like say, you're right, you're valid, everything you're going through is totally valid. And my younger sister is just such a powerhouse. I mean, she told my mom she didn't want to live with her and just really stood up for herself. And I'm like, wow, I took me a lot longer to do that. You're awesome. So just being able to like be there for them is really neat. There's, it's a little uncomfortable because for so long I was like a parental role, and now I'm trying to be like a sister.
Yeah.
And so I feel a little awkward in that role. Like I'm not totally sure how to do that. With the older ones, one of them lives with my mom and is like very, very involved with my mom. So I don't really talk to her as much. And then the other one, I talk to a little bit, but I would say like the most important thing for me is just letting them know that I'm here. Mm-hmm. And I do have some guilt around not reaching out to them as often as I wish I did. But I'm here for them, and one of my goals is to be able to pay for their therapy. So
I love that. Have you enlightened them the way that your dad enlightened them when you were younger?
I've told them like, that's not your fault. That's her, that's how she is. Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Well, it's awesome you were there for that because, I mean, I didn't realize in my situation until I was in my 30s what was going on. So I commend you and your dad. And it's so interesting that your dad is a therapist and ended up in that situation. Have you guys talked about that?
He became a therapist after he was with my mom.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Do you think it was because of that? Like he
I don't
dove
think
in and then
I don't think it was because of her. I think he had a lot of his own stuff to work through.
Okay.
And when they were dating, there was a lot of dysfunction. And, dysfunction attracts dysfunction. And like, I love my dad. He's a great person. But when he was with my mom, I don't think he was that great of a person.
Got it. That's
So, but
interesting.
he's definitely done a lot of the work, and like he and I are able to have really authentic conversations about my childhood, and he's able to it definitely took him a while to be able to like talk about my mom, but having him there to like provide support in like he knew what I was going through because he was in a relationship with her for a while. And so he was like, this isn't new. This is how she is, and it sucks.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any fears as far as, in and around this topic and growing up? And, what are your fears and how do you kind of deal with those?
So, in regards to this topic, talking about it publicly was scary the first time I did, because with my mom, there was always a lot of shame and how dare you talk negatively about me, because so much of her revolves around her public image. And so for me to like get on something like this and be like, here's all the reasons that my mom wasn't a great parent, like it feels like I'm actively disrespecting her in a way. And that's never my intention. I never want her to feel like she's like that. That's not, I'm not trying to do this to scorn her or get back at her. I do this to heal myself. So that's the first thing that came up for me, was when I first started talking about it publicly, that shame. Once I did it, it was like, well, it's already out there now. So, and then other fears, I mean, I think there's fears that like have come out of being raised by someone like her. Like, I have a fear of not being safe, and I have a lot of physical fears and difficulty trusting. And like, one of the things I'm working on right now is being able to like close my eyes in like meditation. Like I can't do that because it feels so dangerous. But in terms of like, in terms of like fears directly around her, I feel like I understand that I have control over that relationship now. Like I've taken my power back. So I don't have any fears around her. It's more so just the recovery part.
100%. As far as closing your eyes during meditation, what does that feel like?
It feels suffocating. I feel like I'm in danger, and I hate it.
Wow. Yeah. If someone else is in the room or even on your own?
It doesn't matter.
Really?
So I've been working with someone on it, and now like I can close my eyes for a couple seconds.
Yeah.
And then I have to open them, check, and make sure I'm safe. And but yeah, I mean it's a slow process. But yeah, I mean stuff like that. Like I just I'm still in such a survival mindset.
Yeah.
Like I've been able to step back from it, but I know that my fight or flight like nervous system is still constantly activated. Yeah. And so that's been the current process, is like, how can I get to relaxation? How can I rest?
Wow. So what is the difference, just from my own understanding, what to you, what is the difference between closing your eyes during meditation and closing your eyes to sleep?
So I hate sleep too.
Really?
But sleep is necessary. So, I can't fight it. But it is hard. It is a hard thing for me.
Do you have a routine that you follow to feel comfortable and safe?
I just go into bed at a certain time, okay. But no, not really. But sleep is necessary. Meditation, or doing breath work or something like that isn't as necessary And so like I can fight sleep, but eventually I'm just going to fall asleep.
Wow. What are the techniques that you are doing to kind of slowly get into meditation?
So the first thing is like I'm doing a lot of NLP, neuro linguistic programming,
Yes.
and tapping. And just that process of like closing my eyes for a couple seconds and opening, everything's okay. Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes again. All right, I'm gonna
Wow.
open, make sure everything's okay. So it's just trying to like lengthen that time period so that I can eventually actually keep my eyes closed. And then rest is really hard for me, and I didn't realize it until like a couple weeks ago. I was like, I can't really rest, can I? And my partner was like, yeah, no shit.
Same.
So just like giving myself permission to be unsettled when I'm tired or I want to rest and I'm trying to, and it's super uncomfortable.
Does that go back to the selfish,
Probably,
like the
yeah.
self-care? So you're like doing something for yourself and then you feel guilty.
Yeah. Probably, yeah,
Wow.
totally. Yeah.
So interesting. It's so important to like be aware, because at least now you know.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting thing that you just said, because I have felt so alone in all, like in so many of the experiences that I've had, that I forget that other people are not also struggling. And so like the idea of being emotionally aware and growing yourself, sometimes I feel like it's a burden, because ignorance is bliss, right? Wouldn't I just be happier like everyone else in the world who's just pretending everything is fine? But it's not true, is it? So that's something that I've come to terms with recently, is that like I'm not alone. It's not a unique experience to be struggling with mental health, to be having a hard time with self-care, to be struggling to relax or close your eyes or things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. What was, for you, what do you think was the turning point? When did you kind of realize that you needed to start, kind of diving into self-help and mental and emotional health?
I think when my dad gave me that book.
No kidding. Wow.
Because it felt so good to be validated. Like, here's a list of validation right here. I need more of this.
Yeah, absolutely.